I've avoided being a Fortune 500 CEO very well throughout my life.
I think that there are aliens out there. But I don't know if I'm believing in like the. I think mathematically there's got to be a chance that there's some intelligent life out there that is, maybe not comparable. I don't expect them to be like humanoid or bipedal or like. There's probably some alien life out there. Like, sure. Like, I think that I can accept that. Like, I think. Will we see them? No, I don't think we'll never come across them. But, I probably somewhere far out there, there's got to be at least a couple.
You think there's like a certain type of alien out there that is like that is so interested in like media and art of their own worlds that they're having their own conversation where it's like bleep blop bleep blop. I want to know what are those aliens like. I want an alien so badly to learn what a Mexican is. I want an alien, an Andromedan, so badly to learn what like what a churro is. I want that
Mm,
so bad.
yeah. No, I obviously we're talking about hypothetical culture and technology and media here. But yeah, I think I thought about this before because I forget what it was. I think it was like people, if something happens to this planet and we're all gone and like TikTok exists, what are they going to think about humanity if they can somehow access that server and look at everything? And yeah, I always wonder like what is the first impression they'd have of humanity? Like would they see Donald Trump? Would they watch, I don't know, The Lion King? Like it's just like kind of like what would they grasp onto? What would they find? Like the churro question, right? Like, what happens if they had pho? What happened? Like just all this stuff. Like what would their reaction be to any of it?
Bringing up Lion King, like an alien podcast is out there asking the question or saying the statement. Nala's kind of a baddie though.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And if you are interested in what the aliens out there in the galaxy, in the Andromedan galaxy, in Betelgeuse, and that sector of space that no one knows about yet, is gonna think about this show, Dove Weather. You will learn it before they ever will because of the way the light, is kind of slow to get around in space, fast to get around on Earth, different out in space. And I, your little dove AP, is here with a second mic.
Yeah.
Another person from a certain outer space, or maybe a certain type of hyperspace, maybe a cyberspace. A gentleman named James, or as you know him online on TikTok, Good Movie, Bad Movie. You are gonna sit here and hear him and explain in depth through an intersectional lens that I adore and really champion, a glimpse into the mind of what a podcaster and a TikToker can do when we crack open the skull of an Andromedan and eat up the themes and the concepts of Begonia, the 2025 Yargos Lanthimos directed and William Tracy written movie about some fellas maybe being too dude like, maybe too guyish, and maybe the hiccups that come with maybe falling in love with a redhead and that redhead not liking you back, and she's also like an alien. So thank you, James, for joining me.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I'm glad to be here. This is a very special movie to talk about. Um, yeah, Begonia. It's a wild ride. I've been a strong champion of Save the Green Planet for couple years now, the movie that it's remade off of. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's wild to be here. I was telling you before the recording, just like we're talking a bit about how long the production took and all that, and um, yeah, this is a movie that I truly did not think could be remade in the English language or by Western directors, and we're here talking about it, which is nuts. I really can't fathom that.
It took 22 years, but somehow the fellas out here in the Western world were able to take Save the Green Planet and make a movie with kind of similar like energy, but like translated very well. Like this a bilingual podcast, Oye cómo va, and I can say that like watching both movies, y there's kind of like both transliteration and just translation to this, and it is so
Oh,
fun to see what is taken directly from Save the Green Planet and put into Begonia, and what is added in the difference there, and dare I say what it says about America.
yeah. Begonia is such an overwhelmingly American movie in the same way that Save the Green Planet is just such an overwhelmingly Korean movie. And it's so Korean movies are so anti-capitalistic, and I think that has so much to say about the country and its history and the history of media censorship there. So all the directors who are making movies are super super progressive, like the Park Chan-wooks and the Bong Joon-ho's, like they're hardcore anti-capitalists. Like I can't imagine if I don't know, Steven Spielberg or James Cameron or all those guys were just like, oh yeah, fuck the government, fuck capitalism. Like I can't imagine if we grew up with some of the film heroes of the 80s and 90s who are hardcore anti-capitalists. Like that's just the norm in Korea. And it's interesting how a movie that came out in 2003 over there translates very well to a 2025 audience, especially when you Americanize it. I have no idea if they like remade it in 2004 or 2005. I don't think it would have been good. I don't think it would have been well received. I think it would be pretty much forgotten about. Yeah,
It would
yeah.
be like the movie Torque, only
Oh yeah.
only fun people, high-minded people like me remember Torque. So if it was done back then, right before the invasion of Iraq, yeah, I think it would have been trash. But luckily we're not
Yeah.
there anymore. We're only
Oh,
getting to the invasion of Venezuela. So history it rhymes. You know,
yeah.
I really like that you have this like love for the original movie. The Korean scene is something I've seen a handful of movies in the last couple of months about that are based and set in Korea, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was one of I think it was Bong Joon Ho's earlier movies about a taxi man, and I was thinking about that as I was watching Save the Green Planet and how, as you say, these Korean directors and prolific ones too, high-minded ones, are all anti-capitalist. And even
Huh.
in Save the Green Planet, there's just all this conversation about who is taking what from whom, and I loved
Yeah.
it. Let's jump into
Oh yeah.
Begonia.
Huh.
I want to know from your standpoint, what did you think of Emma Stone's performance?
I think she was really wonderful. I think I was really torn leaving it. I just focusing on Emma Stone, it might be my favorite performance from her. And I think she balances being so subtle. Like she's a character who is in such fine-tuned control the entire time. Like even though she's held captive, even though she's, sobbing, crying part of the time that she's in the basement, she's constantly trying to fight for some level of control or some level of like how to flip the situation on its head. And I think that was really tactful. I mean, that also speaks to the script and how strong the writing was for her character. And we can argue how much of that is the original film versus the remake, and but I think her performance was wonderful. I think that she also she also had this level of, I think, a carefree, not carefree kind of energy, but just kind of like a spontaneity that, especially that we feel in like the last third of the movie when we kind of understand and unpack who her character is. And um once we finally get that reveal as an audience member, like I think she manages that so well in a way that, like, truthfully, I don't think many actresses could have handled well. Like, to kind of what does it mean to be someone like Emma Stone's character, pretending, being a Fortune 500 CEO, as well as having this big secret that these guys, are aware of, essentially, and kind of, you know, holding that all within her body language.
It is such a great performance, and as you said, like she has this control in her character, and the performance like articulate them, and in a very subtle way, in kind of like the way that like this feeling of like you, if you smell cinnamon in the air, you're like, is that cookies or is that horchata? Yeah, you don't know until
Yeah.
it's in your mouth. And
Yeah.
once this performance was in my mouth, I was like, yo, Emma Stone as Michelle, as the CEO, is jumping back and forth through dimensions of like human existence that is done so well, and sometimes in like a handful of minutes. There are moments where I'm like this Michelle character is so gross that I don't really care that she's getting like kidnapped, right? I think about this one moment where like in the first interrogation where Teddy and Don come down with their little suits and they just confront Michelle to be like, "Hey, we know you're an alien," and then Emma Stone as just this is presenting this character that just woke up and doesn't know what's going on, and as like she like comes into her senses, realizes that there is like real danger here. But because she's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, incredibly powerful, incredibly influential, incredibly well known, she can't help but like hit the this is an underling. This is a peon that is trying to get at me. And so she gets into this dialogue where she says, and I want to be clear, I'm not threatening you or you, but the following is my best guess of how the next 48 hours are likely to transpire. The police and soon thereafter the FBI will begin a statewide manhunt using all of the methods at their disposal and the combined resources of neighborhood jurisdictions. My company is a key job creator and economic engine of the region. I am crucial. Think of it like you've abducted the governor, but worse.
It's such phenomenal dialogue, and I think speaks to, how do I say that? Like, I'm not a Korean person, so I can't speak to the specific Korean nuances in Save the Green Planet, other than the things that I do know and how it's anti-capitalist. And but there's a specific sinister nature to Emma Stone's character that is so uniquely American and capitalistic. Like, this idea that, like, yeah, kidnapping me is worse than kidnapping your governor.
Yeah.
Like, this is going this like the police, the FBI, they're going to protect this capital. They do not, that's how important I am, or that's how this society is structured in order to protect me as a person. And I think that comes across so overwhelmingly clear in the film. And I thought that, to me, I was telling you this before. It's hard for me to not view this film in isolation. Like, I always think about it as a remake because I love that original film so much. And that was one, that was one of the elements I was most afraid of. Like, okay, how do you translate this? And the other element was actually just the entirety of Emma Stone's character. I was like, how do you pull this off? And I was just, they gender swapped her. I'm like, what is this going to do to the story? I was just kind of like, what is this going to happen to the narrative? Like, I thought, are they going to make this far too conventional? Are they going to romanticize like, I was just kind of like, how are they going to Americanize this or appease a Western audience? And um, thankfully, I didn't see like any of that. There's definitely changes they made for a Western audience, but um, thankfully not many to Emma Stone's character. And while she shaved her head for this movie, like she like like such a small thing, but the fact that they had to do that in one go is very impressive to me. From like a you can only shave your lead actress's head once.
And it was so that like the performance here, like in this whole movie like is bent towards the performances that those are the key aspect of everything. And in that scene where like Teddy, who's played by Jesse Plemons, and Don, who's played by Aidian Delbis, who's this is his first credit, and he did a great
Yeah,
job. They
yeah,
kind of like not they don't strip her down, which is I think plays into like the gender expectation of the gender swap. They don't strip her
mm,
down, but they do shave her hair, and also they lather her in what's honestly probably the funnier scenes in the movie, just because it's so silly. Just like
oh,
you're putting on this antihistamine cream for some reason.
mhm,
And because there is this gender swap, you do start to see this violence towards this woman and think, okay, well, where is it gonna escalate to? And the place
oh,
it does escalate to, it is honestly way less violent than some of the stuff that like happened in the Korean version. Like the violence
sure.
was dulled down a little bit, maybe for the sake of like the size of the story as well. But Emma Stone coming in with this much dedication and also like the subtlety in all of this, so good, so good.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. These are characters who are, with the level of cast that it is, or the size of cast that it is, like everybody is managing all these subtleties all the time. And, Emma Stone is someone who really, really keeps everything close to her chest, and I really love the translation of that. And no, but yeah, you're right about them toning down the violence quite a bit, and I'm sure that that's a byproduct of this being an American production. Yeah.
Like the violence in the Korean version is a little more slapstick, a little more like
Oh,
humorous. I really enjoyed Save the Green Planet because of the variety of emotion that can be like delivered. Sometimes it is very serious, sometimes it is very dangerous, sometimes it's just very funny and silly and a little bit odd. Not like Begonia. Begonia's like it was a reduction in like emotional like breadth, but
mm,
by that makes the subtlety of the performances even stronger. Because I do think
mm,
about like what about this gender swap is meaningful to the grander concept that this movie's trying to get at, which I believe is kind of at the end of the day, it's I think this movie's not trying to say anything too deep, but
sure.
it is using the language and the artifacts of the 2020s to say something. I do like that, like, just you have to be a little brain rotted to kind of understand what's going on in this.
Yeah,
And that's what
sure.
Teddy is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. He's someone who's so warped, like in Save the Green Planet, like the conviction of our lead in that film is made so clear so quickly, and it's mostly through that anti-capitalistic lens. But with Begonia, they do so much to make Teddy help frame like what is his ideology. Like clearly we understand the through line with his mother and what's happened with this pharmaceutical company, but the part that is a little bit more mystifying is like what is his belief system beyond that? Like who is he, right? Because Teddy reminds us of so many people that we see, kind of like these fringe types that we're talking about. And he has that whole monologue, which I don't have it written down or anything, but he was talking about like, oh, I dove into the alt-right, I dove into leftism, I dove into Marxism, I was liberal. Like he keeps listing off all these uh places that you can fall on the political ideology, if you were to frame it as a scale, and he's just like, none of that appealed to me. Which that can say so much about his own politics, what he believes, Americans in general, and what they believe. And yeah, I mean, I think it almost, I think about those people who, to keep this current, like I think about I saw this image during New York City's election, and it was this guy who had a hat that said MAGA for Mamdani.
Mm.
And he was like, I voted for Trump all three times. I thought he was going to drain the swamp. I thought he was going to do this. I'm completely disappointed that it didn't happen. It's not happened. But this Mamdani guy is it. And this is the first time he's like in his 50s. This is his first time voting Democrat. And like, good on you making that change, like recognizing like I want, I can follow his belief system and this change that he wants to make. I might question a lot how he tries to go about it. Um, but it made me think so much about Teddy, like someone who obviously he believes something should happen to this woman. Obviously he believes in these aliens. But what he believes beyond that is so not vague. I keep going back to the word American. Like it's like
Mm.
this confused mixture of just beliefs that are this amalgamation of like whatever is convenient for him in the moment. Because throughout the whole movie, he's so contradictory. Even the way that he treats Don or what he tells Don is completely different than how he acts himself. Right.
It's very, like I also saw that image of the MAGA from Mamdani, and I, I think it's very telling to be like, hey, like in the American mind, there are so many different interweaving narratives and concepts that you just kind of have to scratch your head and say, well, it's just that guy. But then you look at the person directly next to them, and they're wearing like MAGA for Biden or MAGA for
Yeah.
anything, where it's just like you just get to the point
Yeah.
where like, okay, maybe it's not just that guy, maybe it's everyone that is a little brain rotted. And this is kind of like, this is why I was interested in looking into Will Tracy as a writer. He started
Mm,
out in The Onion. He became the editor in chief. He eventually
mm,
started working at the show with John Oliver, and he
mm.
wrote for Succession. He wrote The Menu. Like he has talent, right? He knows what
Yeah.
he's doing. He
Mm.
also happens to have a full catalog of work that says this guy and his screen time on his phone is in the double digits every day. Like this guy is spending hours on the internet.
Oh yeah. 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 Absolutely. And Ari Aster produced this. I absolutely believe he's somebody who's chronically online as
Mm.
well. Like, I don't know what you think about Eddington, but you can't make that movie and not be chronically online. Like, you have to be deep in it and uh, being as objective as possible. And yeah, you can't make Begonia with somebody who's offline at all. Like, it would just not work. It would be a very thin black and white portrayal of who Americans are, and it would not have portrayed Teddy's emotions or desires as vague, gray as they were, right? Like he is very complex as he is simple. It's
The complexity comes from not having, as external viewers, not having like a direct line to like understand. Oh, he went to this college. He learned about gay Marxism, and then like he got a PhD and is now like teaching how to break dance to like Australians or whatever. Right? There's no one specific through line that says this is what happened, but there is the kind of understanding that this guy's just kind of a loser, and Jesse Plemons plays him so well as just kind of a loser. And the movie builds him that way. Like this kind of, from what I could tell, this kind of takes place in the East Coast. I think it takes place in Nashville, and that city that he's in is absolutely not built for people to be on bikes, except he's on a bike. He's being shown as either being stunted or being like just a loser that can't get a car. Whichever one it is, it makes him a very clear mark for the type of like ingratiation of like conspiratorial thinking. And he kind of gets into it. There is this moment in this scene in this dinner scene, which is my favorite scene in the whole movie. There is he makes some like notations of like, oh, I've read some 50,000 think pieces about that. When like Michelle is like, look, you've read a lot. You know you've been on the internet for too long. But like the Will Tracy being also on the internet, it's like I gotta make sure that I parry that like argument. And he goes on to say like some other things that like make it very clear that the perspective from Teddy comes from someone who imagines this person. And the other line that I can think of here is like when he says, "You're gonna say that I'm in some kind of internet-induced auto-hypnotic feedback loop and gatekeepers and norms and all that weak hegemonic horse shit," which is like if you've read anything about weirdos online talking about phrenology and like all this dumb shit, like it gets so esoteric and so strange that your head hurts and you think that person's not human, or maybe I'm not human, whichever one makes me feel better at that time. And that's because there has been like 5,000 think pieces that like the type of person in a socioeconomic scale that Will Tracy is in have read. And
Oh yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I do. I do too. And I think that dinner scene might also be my favorite scene too. That or even the first reveal of her in the basement, I think is just brilliant how they staged all that and how they kind of like put that together. It's everything I wanted from that scene. And I think that, yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if you've read this or this is just a statistic that I've seen somewhere, like to get down a rabbit hole where someone believes a conspiracy or starts following all these things. I think like all they need to do is see 5 YouTube videos in a row or
Mm.
something. Like all of a sudden you're in like you're in this pipeline, maybe not like an alt-right pipeline, but you're in a pipeline where you believe something that you didn't an hour or two ago, right? And yeah, I mean, obviously aspects of the film aren't rooted in logic, like they're rooted in shock value and humor, and that's great. Like that doesn't make the movie any less great. But yeah, you're right about Will Tracy and the type of person he is and the type of writer that he is, and to craft a character like this, regardless if it's based off another film script, is just a wild undertaking. Like it's such a specific look at an American that again was a fringe type 10 years ago. Now it's just your everyday guy. And yeah, I mean, you were talking about the bicycle thing. I even just wondered, did he not use a car because he was afraid he was going to get tracked by the Fed? Like I was just like, does he not, like he doesn't trust the computers in cars, or like, I was just like, or the Andromedons, or they can see through the metal in the car, they can see where I'm going, like I wondered all that stuff, and it all felt plausible for him. Or like you said, he could be a loser who can't, like a loser, or like somebody who's just like, yeah, he's making barely any money at this like Amazon like facility, and he's just getting by in this small rural town. And that's also a very familiar story to so many people right now.
And
Right.
that's why like I hone in at the dialogue level, right? Will Tracy talks about how like he kind of wrote this, and like Yorgos Lanthimos didn't like kind of change anything. So like what they got
Mm,
is what they made, and so the dialogue is so important because this was also written in 2020, and there's a one
mm,
specific word that comes in this like dinner scene, in this fight, these regular fights that like Teddy and Michelle have, which is like the word shibboleth. And shibboleth is one of
mm,
those words that has like popped in and out of like popularity over the last 5 years
mm,
to describe things. And well, Teddy is a shibboleth. Teddy is constructed as a figure that you could that is antiquated, and it's also like this
mm,
kind of like it's so antiquated that you could add any narrative you want onto him. Is he a loser because he rides a bike? As a cyclist, I could tell you
mm.
no. Is he a loser because he hates women? Yes. And
Yeah,
like I'll live and die off of that.
sure. Yeah,
And
yeah.
the,
No, nothing wrong with riding bikes, of course.
and in that dinner scene, I think it really has this like interplay of kind of like this desire also to kind of paint Teddy as pretty much as an incel. That William
Mm,
Tracy like tries to like fight that. He says that he didn't really want to do that, which I'm like, okay, bro, sure, thank you for making a 2 hour movie where like you present an incel and then you tell me he's not an incel. Thank you. And in it, as I was watching it, I was just like, oh, this is kind of like a bad date. This is shot
mm,
and delivered like it was a bad date in between uh, Michelle and Teddy for the
mm,
first time in maybe a long time or in his whole life, where a beautiful woman is giving him attention and he is being like he's being pulled away from that incel life. And the
mm.
way that this movie was just like, bro, no, don't think of it like that. This is just a. They both hate each other because Michelle immediately goes into like, you're a fool, you're stupid, I'm better than you, you're a loser, I'm a winner. I remember your mother, she was shit, and you know I didn't give you enough money. I didn't give you the $4,000 a month, which is nothing to me, but it's so much to you. Like, and that like ping ponging of like points of view was done so well at the dialogue and the performance level, because I could sit there and think, yeah, this is a bad date, but it's also, or like it uses the like image and language of a bad date, but it's between an incel and a normal, well, a human being, a CEO, to to give me the space to just overlay whatever I want, and I love it.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Like, I think during this scene, funnily enough, not like the scene where he thinks he's gonna save his mom or anything like that. Like, he's definitely the happiest during the scene at points. So you could see this mask of insecurity or this facade that he's maintained kind of droop off, which is such a stark contrast from, like, early in the film, he's hyping up Don, he's getting him ready without saying what's going on. He's doing, speaking of the incel angle, like the very specific enforced sterilization that takes place very early in the film, which I was just like, I was in a theater with not that many people, like it was maybe like 30 of us, but I could hear like just kind of like the gasp of like what is actually happening here right now, and it was not nearly as shocking as anything that happens after, but I think it says so much about who Teddy is as a character and like what he's willing to do to Don. And I don't know if you read it this way or if you thought about the scene the way that I did. I'm convinced he did not sterilize himself. Like I was so convinced that this was like like he's using some of that language regardless of Will Tracy intends it or not. Maybe Will Tracy's saving face by even saying that. But Teddy was like, "Oh yeah, like you'll get over it or you'll feel better after you do the thing. And I'm like, I don't think he did this. Like, I think he just did this to Don, and now Don is left to suffer the rest of the movie.
But I think I'm with you 100%. Whatever treatment, like whatever treatment Teddy took on, I don't know if like it was never really shown. So like it is up for the interpretation, and my interpretation is that Teddy was abusing Don. Like what the injection that Teddy gave Don is progesterone. And progesterone, this being a pro-trans podcast, the listeners know what's up. There's at least 20% of this audience is just like, oh, right, I have to take my progesterone. and
Yeah.
and like what it is like a hormone drug that helps settle down like menopause symptoms or like menstrual cycle. Like it helps with that, and it also helps with like hormone replacement therapy for like
Mhm.
feminization therapies. Um, and it's also kind of this thing where like if this guy was a little bit of an incel, he is effectively he's effectively castrating Don, and also like force feminizing Don, which neither one of those things is like put very in front in the movie, but that's what the like subtlety and like the simplicity of his character provides. And
Mhm.
so yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. Teddy did not
Yeah.
take it. No.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and I mean you're right. Like he is abusing Don, whether Don thinks it or not, and obviously it shapes what Don does later in the film. Um, which to me is the most shocking moment in the movie, which is Don's death. Like I think that really, really, really threw me off as someone who'd seen the original film. Just in the way that it was portrayed. Like I can tell what was happening when it was happening, but still the impact of it um was devastating. I felt so. Don is the only uh, morally pure person in this movie. He helps with the kidnapping, obviously, but like he doesn't know. Yeah.
He's being abused. Absolutely. During leading up to that like scene where he dies, he said he asked Michelle if like he could take him away from this place. I think that is exactly what like someone getting abused would ask of somebody else, yeah, a stranger. You know, someone that's like in his mind, in the narrative that he's working under, is evil also. Because Teddy, as we know, because of the cop character Casey, did abuse Teddy, and I would say Teddy's mom abused him, not just because of like uh, the alien stuff, but also for the level of like the dialogue the only kind of dialogue we hear from her, which is just kind of like you have to hate these people, you have to hate these people, and you have to take on this crusade against woke against
Yeah.
aliens. What did
Yeah.
you think of that
Yeah.
kind of like abuse narrative and all this?
Aside from like the gender swapping, like probably the biggest narrative piece that is reshaped in this. Um, on one hand, it makes the film, I don't want to say more palatable because nothing about the movie is like easy to watch. Like it is a challenging watch, even when they tone down a lot of this. But I think it's almost like a narrative through line to like help point out to the audience, like, hey, this is why these people are like this, like added motivation. Um, but like thinking outside of that lens, like, yeah, like it shows that Teddy is someone who is tremendously hurt. Like he's been hurt in multiple ways that, sure, there's everything that's happened to his mom, but you're right. Like who his mom was, who Casey was, and like how long was this going on? Like this, when this happens to you as a young kid, this can shape your whole life. Like I doubt he was going to therapy every week. I doubt like he'd ever really talked to anybody about this. And this is something that like he's closing up because he's trying to hide Michelle in the basement. Like that's kind of like the dark humor over it all. That he's like, oh yeah, like I'm over it. I forgive you. And Stavi as Casey is kind of like, oh, I feel bad about this. This happened, and um, yeah, it was a really really shocking kind of revelation. Like you kind of feel those undertones at first. I really never thought we were going to get an explicit conversation. Um, and it was just so striking to see. And I don't know, I think it added a layer of richness ultimately that again, like very hard to sit with, but um yeah, it really helps us understand who Teddy is and tries to help us empathize with him even though he's so deeply unlikable. Yeah.
It shows that he's just been abused by not just one system but many overlying systems that like caused him to come into this like theories and oddities that like in the movie are real, but in like the reflection of reality it's not. And and like I kind of didn't, I really didn't like the like abuse narrative of Casey um
Mm.
for Teddy because it felt a little bit out of place for me because I could not understand where this character of Casey was going to until it was clear that he was an abuser. I just thought this is a small town cop. This is a person that is very much a drunk on a certain type of power. If you ever lived in a small town and dealt with small town cops, and I do like that he's like a fumbling, bumbling, dumbling fool because in the original, like there's multiple cop characters and they're all highly intelligent, capable, even if a little mystic in their own way. I really like that like Casey was just this fool.
Mm.
I just kind of wish it wasn't. I just wish there wasn't like those implications.
Yeah, sure. It's like definitely the most mean-spirited part of the film to like add this extra layer of tragedy to his character. And sure, it narratively it ties everything together because everyone is being abused. Like there's so many layers of abuse here. But yeah, it definitely is the one step where like whoa, like it's a lot. And you're right about the cop characters in Save the Green Planet compared to Casey. Like he is so bumbling, he's so goofy. He actually reminds me of like the way that police are typically portrayed in Korean film, which are like idiots. Like Bong Joon-ho, I don't know if you see Memories of Murder. Every cop in that movie is an idiot. Like everybody, like he is basically saying like the reason why the crime in the film, which was based off a real crime, wasn't solved is because these cops are not smart people. Like they're unorganized, they're rash, they make constant mistakes, and he's like, I got to do this as a filmmaker,
Mm.
right? And so Casey actually falls in line. I don't know. I feel like in American media, we don't often see the goofy cop in this kind of movie. Like we typically see the straightforward detective, or we see like they're not meant. There's not too many pieces of media that are willing to like critique police, right? Um, and not necessarily like it's saying anything about police, but like having a character like Casey as a cop. But
Not in
yeah,
2020. In 2020, like
there you go.
the cop media, just
Mm.
look at Chicago PD, MD, all of those
Oh,
Chicago type shows,
yeah.
and NCIS and so on. All of these are like, oh, these are the highly trained, capable
Mm.
figures that could do anything and figure out any challenge. When, like, in the United States, like, the clearance rate is effectively 50-50. If you could get away
Oh,
with murder 50% of the time in the United States. And
oh.
and that's kind of like what Casey is. Casey's kind of like this dumbass cop. And
Mm.
even when he is like on the lookout, he is the near he is the like force that Michelle talked about in that dialogue at the first interrogation, he is the presentation of that, and he shits the bed. He gets
No.
murdered with a shovel by the
Yeah.
person he abused. But it just
Yeah.
shows he's a fool. He's a fool. In this like article that I read with Will Tracy, he talks about how he doesn't want, he would never like agree with an article that says, "Oh, this is the movie ending explained." He wants to take
Mhm.
this. He wants to take this hands-off approach on like the narrative,
Mhm.
and I have my own feelings about that. But what I do want to know is like, what do you
Sure.
think, like big picture wise? What is this movie getting at?
That's like a really great question. And it's a fun, not to talk about this in like such a meta way. I think like so many people think the ending of both this film and the Korean film are cop outs. Like lots of people hate the ending of this movie, the other movie. I think to me, I think one, he wants us to examine really who are these people? Who are the Teddies? What drives them? What makes them? Can we fix them? You know, these are the people who are living a few apartments down from us or houses down. You know, like these are people in our community, right? Especially in 2025 America, and like we need to not just be vigilant, but try to understand and try to understand them at some level. Not saying that we have to agree with them or like them, obviously. And I don't think he's trying to say that they're all like to some level these people are right with the reveal of like the Andromedans being real or like all the like I don't think he's necessarily trying to say that. I think he's trying to say that like there is truth in the absurd. Like they're like underneath this how ridiculous this narrative is and what happens and these types of characters, they're people who are hurt by the American medical industry, like by healthcare, by these pharmaceutical companies, by just every single bit of our capitalist society. And they're hurt too, regardless of what they're like or who they are, if they're personable, right? And part of living in a society that is trying to make change or make things better, like we do have to engage with these people at some level. Like, keep yourself safe and don't get locked in a basement or get attacked by bees with a shovel, right? Like, but
Write that down,
they're
listener. Write that down.
yeah, that you'll be in that exact scenario. But these are real people. Like there's a reason why Teddy feels so salient to so many different people. And you know, take away the absurdity and sit with what's there. Like I think that's what he's trying to say. That's my opinion
Mm.
about the movie. And this is, again, listener, I've watched the Save the Green Planet a number of times. This movie is very integrated in me, or its narrative and its plot and its themes. So that's always what I've kind of taken away from it personally.
You know,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think that is, I think that's incredibly textual. I think this movie wants you to like very clearly see the class dynamics and also like who gets to portray what violence and at what time and how that like exists within the scope of the state versus outside of the state. And I get the point. I get the point that Will Tracy, who has this like history of talking about those things, and also Yorgos Lanthimos, who does the same thing. Yeah, going back to like the lobster, going back to the favorite, going back to like this idea that like there's always this like grander power that is kind of putting its boots on the rest of society. I just kind of am at a point, and longtime listeners like know exactly where I'm going here. I'm just kind of a point in this where I'm like, come on, maybe be a little more like forward with it. Maybe sharpen that knife just a bit more, because this is my first time seeing Save the Green Planet, and
Mm.
I'm not Korean. You know, I love a bibimbap. I love rice. You know, arroz mexicano is wonderful. Check that out. What I do know is that like South Korea was effectively built in the image of the United States post, the Korean War. And due to that, a massive amount of power and resources were put onto a handful of people. Where now there is a system of what's called the cabals. Uh, I mispronounced that so badly, uh, but it's just this group of families that like have an outsized power in South Korea. The biggest one being Samsung. Samsung has an incredible amount of power in South Korea. Now, what is the Samsung of the United States? Like, there's a variety of them, right? It's regional. It could be Walmart. It could be Lockheed Martin. It could be it could be Eli Lilly. It could be any one of these. And what I feel is, and what I would have wanted to see these creators do, is take a step further and say, yeah, we kind of hate capitalism. kind of like how the Korean movie did. And so,
No.
because it didn't go that far, and in the metaphors and the lyrics used throughout this movie, I just kind of get to the point where I'm like, I don't know. Like, I understand Will Tracy's doing the David Lynch thing to be like, what's your thoughts? Maybe your thoughts are what matters. But like in 2025, I kind of just want to see a little bit of I want to see a hammer, and if the other hand has a sickle, that's also cool. And so my thing is that I think this movie is kind of saying it's a movie. I think there's so much conversation about what the ending means, and to me, compared to the Korean version, is this movie saying, "Hey, it's a movie. It's fake." Because it doesn't get to the point of being like it just there is no like central point or like vision for the future, or a concept of grander change, that like if you get bombarded with this brain rotted internet language of everything from progesterone to like Marxism, or like the algorithm, or the think pieces in the New York Times, and so on and so on. And then at the end of it, there's kind of like nothing but like a pathetic death in a closet. It's just kind of, to me, I think this movie saying, "Hey, how about we just have a little fucking fun? How about we just enjoy ourselves just a little bit?"
I can definitely grasp onto that. And I mean, I don't I don't think that Will Tracy is an anti-capitalist at all. I mean, I love Succession. Succession's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And not to throw it back to another one of his movies, but I saw The Menu, and one of my biggest critiques about why The Menu doesn't work is because I don't think I part of me wants to say all at the studio level, but I'll say many writers who are working for these major studios are anti-capitalist, and that's where the commentary just kind of like, it's a sharp movie, it's a watchable movie, it's enjoyable like The Menu, and I love Begonia because of all the things that make Save the Green Planet, but is it as sharp of a criticism or satire or comment? No, no, it's not any of those things, and yeah, it's because Will Tracy isn't an anti-capitalist. um I'll Ari Aster produced it, so I don't know how much of his voice is in there. Like he's somebody when you really break down what he's saying, like, oh, he really hates this shit. He's never come out and said he's an anti-capitalist, but like he is more, again, like we talked about brain rot and tuned in. Like, no, he gets it. Like he even if you don't like his movies, he gets it to a more of a degree than I think a lot of people do at his level. Um, but yeah, no, I think that's beyond fair. Like, I think, you know, life is short. Like, there is a limit to all this. And, you know, not to like speculate too much, like what is the implication if this is all true? Like, there are aliens. Like, I don't think he's trying to say that Teddy's justified in all the horrible stuff that he did. But Teddy certainly made his life worse because he believed all the stuff that he did. He didn't just leave it alone, right? There can be interpretation that like, hey, leave these greater systems around you alone and just be and live your life the fullest or happiest. And I would argue that's a very like there's a very capitalist message in that, right? To be, I'm not saying that's absolutely my interpretation, but yeah, no, I don't think you're off in terms of what you think about the film at all. I can absolutely see that.
And I think the movie just shows it. Like,
Mm.
no one's really likable here, right? You're not really supposed to like any one of them. So like, if you're not supposed to like any one of them, their example becomes a negative example, something you should avoid. So like, do you no? I've avoided being a Fortune 500 CEO very well throughout my life. You know what? I might do it. I might do it for a couple of more years too. Who knows? And
Mm.
what? And I've also avoided being a misogynistic like incel type.
Mm.
There is no like positive viewpoint here. So an example to
Mm.
be mimicked or to be replicated. What there is though is a lot of gawking. It's like
Mm.
it's a lot of gawking at both like of what's happening in the 2020s, greater violence, more widespread violence to both the lower class and the upper class. We're about to hit the 1 year mark of Luigi Mangioni's like
Oh,
arrest, which I'm just gonna say
oh,
arrest. But we're also like nearing the 1 year mark of Brian Thompson's death. And
oh,
this movie was written before any of that happened. So did it didn't anticipate that, because when it was being written in 2020, this violence was already being put into larger pieces of the social fabric. And
mm.
that's kind of why I'm like yeah, take the extra step. Take the extra step and say, don't be like either one of these people. Be like this guy. Be like Superman. Fuck it. I'm gonna say James Gunn.
Oh,
I so like I don't. It feels a little anticlimactic compared to some other like
mm.
anger and like vitriol that I've seen people like spew about this movie and how much they dislike the ending. But I think the ending
Mm.
is just. I think it validates this sensation that's like the solution is not going to be presented here. So just maybe
Mm.
enjoy it. Maybe enjoy the presentation.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. Huh.
As I watch this movie, like I want to see more. Like I want to see things that like are this level of like fun and like odd and weird. This is such a small movie. There's only really a handful of sets. It's really all on
Mm.
like uh the performance, and I really like that. I like this movie overall.
Mm.
I like this movie way more than I liked Eddington, and I think both of those movies are like they're trying to get at the same thing, and not just Ari Aster, but
Sure.
like they're trying to get at the same thing of like what is happening post 2020.
Mm.
And I really like what this movie gave me, which is fun performances, great dialogue, a great adaptation of another very fun, great movie. And I want to see more
Mm.
stuff that is like that level of fun.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like there's a way to do movies like this that are talking about something serious, whether you like how it delivers that message or not, and it can be fun. Like there is a way to um how do I say this? You can hit that balance or have this tone shift or have this genre shift. Like you can be playful with it. And I think a lot of specifically American films are not very good at that, and lots of Korean films are good with that. Like
Mm,
I said, I'm not an expert on Korean film, but someone who's tried to watch more and more and more and more, even stuff from like the 60s, I'm like, they're so playful with what something is. Like they're so much of Bong Joon-ho is one of his favorite movies is The Housemaid, which is a 1960 Korean movie. Phenomenal movie. but so much of what he gets with his genre twist, how he plays with the audience expectation, like that all comes from that one movie. Like they're and they all do that so well over there, not to be stereotypical or generalized Korean film, but we don't see that a lot here. And it took, Yorgos I think is great at that. That's why I wanted him to remake this movie. That's why I'm glad he remade this movie. But um I wish more people did it. I wish more people were kind of all over the place and, be thematically coherent, but be playful everywhere else.
Yeah. And I think my thoughts on the writing and the like directing like are one thing, but like I think this was a great coupling. I think Will Tracy has a point of view that he knows very well how to like present. I really like the menu. As someone who
Mm.
has like gone to a handful of high-end Michelin star restaurants, I have been in those like I could see that the way that this
Mm.
takes place in the menu. And with
Mm.
Yorgos Lanthimos, like the way that I think about like The Favorite, where he put in Nicholas Holt effectively breakdancing in Victorian England, which is so fun. So fun. And you know what else is fun, James? Podcasting with you. Thank you for
Oh.
being on Dove Wither and not just talking Begonia, but also bringing me this Korean film, Save the Green Planet. Wonderful recommendation. Thank you so much. James, where can the good people of Dove Weather find you?
You can find me on TikTok. I've been there for about 3 years, movie good or movie bad. I think it's all one word. I think all the usernames are one word. I'm on YouTube. I've been there for about a year doing some video essays. Um, and yeah, those are most of the places. I have a podcast. It's on a bit of a delay. It's coming back very, very soon. That is also movie good or movie bad. You can basically find me at movie. If you go onto any social media website, you wonder, is James there? Type in movie good or movie bad, and you'll see if I'm there. I'm in most places, not all of them. I'm not on Twitter, so everywhere except Twitter, probably.
Well, that's good. And I will have the links to that right where your thumbs are at, listener. Give James a follow. Watch his stuff. James, like you present, you do something that I wish more like media commentators did, which is just say the words. Just say, "Hey, this is misogynistic. This is racist. This is so short-minded that this is so short-minded. You can't. They can't see the horizon. Like I enjoy that about your work, and you do it in this way that is agreeable and very forward. You have this presentation that like I feel like I'm listening to like an adjunct professor at my alma mater, the city colleges of Chicago, and be like, oh, okay, this guy knows his stuff and he's doing it out of passion. So please follow his stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please do, and thank you for having me on here. This was an amazing time. Thank you.
And listener, I have you want to make sure you tune in for next week's episode because there might be some thunder and some lightning. There might be a ghost from the past. There might be a vampire from an outer haven coming into your inner haven, joining us on Mike next week. And to do that and to know when we're out, follow us on TikTok, on Bluesky, on YouTube. You can find us everywhere at Dove Weather. And with that, listener, be well. Bye.
Bye.